Welcome in to 2-4 Drafts, the Thursday edition of 2-4 Drafts. I'm Austin Gayle with my guy Mike Renner. Today we're going over the running back class ahead of the 2021 NFL Draft. That still feels crazy to me because we spent so much time on the 2020 draft. To be looking ahead at other prospects already feels premature. But I feel like it's been a worthwhile exercise, and I know the work that we're doing now is building up to what will be a 2021 NFL Draft Guide in August, I believe that will be released. So a lot of fun stuff there.
Yes, in this running back class, we've talked about quarterbacks now and wide receivers, and I've said 2021 quarterback class looks special, 2021 wide receiver class better at this point in time than the 2020 class was. This running back class does not come close to last year's. It is. There might be some top end talent, the depth of it, the sort of talent, the amount of guys we saw going day two this past year. I do not foresee that in 2021. Just at this point in time, it does not look nearly as good. Yes.
Man, I just get super excited about Travis Etienne, and I think Travis Etienne, we had him as running back one for the 2020 draft before he decided to go back to school, and then but you do start looking after this. There are some question marks with a lot of other guys considered to be those tier 2 running backs in this class. So it'll be interesting to get into those guys.
I will say there are guys who can come out of nowhere every year. I probably would not have had been super high on Clyde Edwards-Helaire last year at this point in time. The guys can obviously impress, but in terms of the guys who are known quantities, sort of guys who have been in starting roles and are returning, I'm not super excited about this class.
We also interviewed former NFL running back and current CBS Sports Network analyst Tiki Barber, and he was fantastic. We're going to get to that interview after we go over the running back class, but he had some really good takes on why the Panthers paid Christian McCaffrey, running back value, the importance of versatility. I thought he had some very nuanced takes. I was happy to have him on.
Yes, and for a former running back, he had a very nuanced view of the way that the fact that position has changed in terms of the valuation and what you can get out of it in today's NFL, unlike some maybe other popular running back analysts who do national television, and they really haven't changed their opinion on how valuable the position should be.
I mean, he was just you'd have to be ignoring copious amounts of data and evidence that the running back position is more replaceable. You just simply have to be ignoring it due to biases or whatever it may be. But that interview was great. We'll get to that after we go over these backs here. Let's start with Travis Etienne, Mike, the Clemson running back that honestly is super explosive, force missed tackle ability for days, home run hitting ability. Again, we have said this multiple times on this podcast. Why did he go back to school? Because I think he was the best running back in this class. And now there's obviously that injury risk. And Tiki Barber, we'll get to that later, talks about that injury risk, talks about how, running backs going back to school for their senior year is obviously a risk, especially in Travis Etienne's case. Ignoring that, talk to me about Travis Etienne as a player.
Yeah, I just get Bryce Love sort of vibes. Not vibes, but that's how I felt when Bryce Love came back. I'm just damn, you're rolling the dice when you don't have to. You're taking a big risk that doesn't need to be taken. But money is not everything to everybody, and Travis Etienne probably has a great time at Clemson. When you're winning and you're competing for national championships, that's probably a fun-ass time. I wouldn't be able to relate to that, but I bet it is, and that probably plays a factor in this. So can't hate on him too much in terms of what he brings to the football table on the field. Explosiveness and big playability we have not seen at the college level. Literally. I mean, his rate of 10-plus yard carries is the highest we have ever seen in the last 6 years in college. He had the highest broken tackle rate we've ever seen this past year, 91 broken tackles on 207 attempts. You saw the video of him running the 40-yard dash stride for stride with Isaiah Simmons. Earlier, we were damn, that's ridiculous for Isaiah Simmons. Oh, well, that's ridiculous for Etienne now because that's a 4.39 we found out for Isaiah Simmons. So that's pretty damn fast for a running back. And he's gotten a lot bigger over the course of his college career, too. He came into Clemson. I remember watching one run from his freshman, damn, who's that guy? Because he was just explosive, but he was also a stick. And he's probably put on 15 to 20 pounds since he got there, listed at 215 now. I'm just a big fan of that explosiveness. I think it will translate and can be utilized in the NFL. He showed a lot more as a receiver this past season, but he's not without some reservations. And the biggest one to me is his running style. He gets lateral to the line of scrimmage far, far more than you would like to see from a top running back prospect. Like, he looks for those home runs. The amount of times he's, running inside zone and he tries to bounce out the front side, like tries to come out on where just you really don't want to go outside the front side, inside zone, because the guy is playing contain there usually, and like you have to beat the contain guy, and that doesn't happen in the NFL nearly as much as it does in college. Yeah. And he can do it in college, but his running style is question mark to translate. Now he will grind out runs. He will stick his foot in the ground and like go get upfield and run through tacklers. Like, he's not afraid of contact, but just he's a little big play happy.
I mean, big play, you see that with backs though that have that home run hitting ability, that know that if they do break this, if they can go the distance. So I wonder, I'd be interested, we didn't ask Tiki this, but it'd be interesting to know how much of that is coachable, and obviously it's a mentality. So I think it takes reps and obviously like just kind of constant kind of massaging. But regardless, this past year ranked first in forced missed tackles in the country, tied for first in forced missed tackles per attempt, first in yards after contact per attempt, practically breaks any chart you put him on, even if you look back to 2014 when PFF first started collecting data at the collegiate level. Like Travis Etienne, this past year specifically, was rare. It'll be interesting to see how he builds off of it with Trevor Lawrence and company. I think he could put up gaudy numbers again in 2020. Like, there are going to be people talking about him as a first-round pick because of what the numbers will look like. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. I think he will. I think he does end up as a first-round pick with that athleticism, kind of similar like Melvin. There's the Melvin Gordon sort of return to school. Everything goes well. You run for 2,500 yards. You come back. You're a first-round pick. And then there's a Bryce Love scenario that could happen as well, where he falls down to fourth, fifth-round pick. I don't think that's obviously worst case scenario. I think he still ends up a high pick.
All right, moving to Chuba Hubbard. A lot of people like this guy, and he does not show up super strong from a forced missed tackle per attempt standpoint or yards after contact per attempt standpoint. But you do see it with him when he, this past year specifically.
He reminds me of J.K. Dobbins in terms of, you can't put your finger on one thing where you're like, damn, he does that elite. Yep. There's not like one sort of trait he has, but like everything he does is like very good. And he's also not exceptionally big either. He's listed at 6 foot 201, but I never at any point like thought his size was an issue. Like with his running style, like does not play like that. If you were to tell me to guess how big he was, I would have said like 215 after seeing him run this past season. And so you like guys like that, the guys who play bigger than what they're listed at. I think J.K. Dobbins came into the combine at like 207. So like he played a lot bigger than that at Ohio State. So I think he's just all around, can do basically anything you ask from him. His jump cuts between the tackles are very good vision. Like I said, there's just like not one thing necessarily to hang his hat on, but that's still in the NFL. Like if you do a lot of things very well, you'll be a quality running back.
Where do you think he needs to get better to kind of maybe cement himself as this number 2 back, you think? Or is it just kind of like doing everything
bigger,
well?
faster? That's like, what else can you do at that point at the running back position? That's really kind of the gist of it, and why we keep saying, oh, if you're junior, fucking go. Like that's why Chuba Hubbard, just go. Like what are you gonna prove to evaluators? You already had, over 2,000 yards. You've already caught over 40 passes in your career. You've shown that you can impact both those areas. I don't think he has much more to prove. I think he just kind of is who he is, and I bet he's probably in that late day 2, early or late second round, mid third round, sort of where he comes off the board.
All right, let's jump to Alabama's Najee Harris. This dude is a hoss, 6'2", 230, just a monster. This past year forced 59 missed tackles, a sub-4 yards after contact per attempt average, 89.3 PFF rushing grade this past year. Najee Harris was this like super coveted recruit coming out, I think was Alameda or Antioch in California. But Najee, I feel like there are people who love Najee Harris, but there are others who don't see the dynamism as the other running backs in this class have.
Yeah, he's got really loose hips for a big dude. So 6'2", 230, but he can cut on a dime, stop on a dime. It's rare for a guy that size. Like compare him and the way his feet move to a guy like AJ Dillon, and it's night and day. Like he can cut. I think you can utilize him in the passing game a lot more than most big backs, most guys that size, you worry about like, can he get open against linebackers? He's the same exact size as a linebacker. Like, does he have the athletic advantage? And now I think he's slow. I think he's going to run high 4.6s. He just does not get away from guys down the field. He does not have that extra gear in his game. But I think with where he wins and his running style, he still can. He still can be an effective running back at the NFL level in sort of an Eddie Lacy, prime Eddie Lacy, sort of before he ate his way out of the NFL. Sort of that's the impact you could have from a Najee Harris. There's a run in the bowl game against Michigan that's awesome. That's late in the fourth quarter. Like that got probably every run game truther just so horny because it's late in the game. Grinding, salting away the clock there, and he drags 5 guys. Has 5 guys. There's literally a screenshot I have on my computer with 5 guys all touching him at one point, and him still standing. 5 Michigan defenders. That's just kind of who he is. He is, if you want a horse of a running back, if you want the big running back in this class, he's your guy.
I mean, and talking to Tiki, I'll tease the interview a little bit. He talks about his favorite running back in the NFL right now, and it's Derrick Henry, because he talks about the importance of the 4-minute offense and having just these monsters being able to run the football like Derrick Henry. I mean, he's not the same size and mass as Derrick Henry, but it's a similar style in that, like, you're just a pounded out running back. You're a guy that can really grind it out, run between the tackles.
It out. Yeah.
I mean, it's facts, just all facts. All right. Opposite of pounding it out, Max Borghi, the Washington State running back. 5'10".
That's very good. The
complete
opposite.
5'10", 197 pounds, led all of college football this past year in receptions. Like, he was used a ton in the passing game in that Washington State offense, which is obviously good news for another back we'll mention later, Kylan Hill. Now with Mike Leach at Mississippi State, I think you could see him get involved a ton in the passing game and boost his stock. But Borghi, some have made the comparisons to Christian McCaffrey, and I can't.
Racists have. That's racist. That's fine.
I can't get on board with the McCaffrey hype, but looking at receiving backs and these backs that do have a ton of, a ton of experience catching the football, and he does have a handful of forced missed tackles on these things. He does have some elusiveness to his game, but I don't see a Christian McCaffrey in Max Borghi.
I mean, what I see is he's closer to, who's the guy I'm trying to? He's just closer to a slot receiver than he is a running back. So he's not a Christian McCaffrey. Like, he's honestly in Washington State's offense this year. The head coach, who's escaping my mind, who came over from Hawaii, who is now head coach at Washington State, he might honestly play just slot receiver in that offense because they utilize the running back.
They run a ton of 5 wide.
Yeah. So he may end up being just a slot wide receiver because that's where his skill set is.
That would be good for him, though. That would be good for him. Like that's where he wanted to use him in the NFL. And like I wouldn't even make the comparison to Austin Eckler because that guy is like an athletic freak. Like Austin Eckler is an underrated athlete and a half. Like you like going back and looking at like Western Colorado and stuff.
Max Borghi will be called sneaky athletic. I mean, drink every time he gets called sneaky athletic this fall. You have a great fall. He had 2 drops this year, though, on 87 catchable. Really good hands. He is a really natural receiver of the football. Runs good routes out of the backfield. Like, that's where he wins. And he is fast. Like, he's probably going to run the 4.4s if I had to bet. Like, he has the speed to his game, but he's not necessarily, like, for an undersized back, 5'10", 197 listed at. It's not, like, bouncy.
Super bouncy, yeah.
Yeah. He's not necessarily agile. He doesn't have that aspect to his game. He's more of a one-cut go guy. One cut and then speed sort of guy. And that works as a route runner from slot. Like, you don't need necessarily that
Rex
bounce.
Burkhead. What about that comp? If we're just going to stick
to only white running backs.
We're going to stick to just white running backs.
On the Christian McCaffrey, Rex Burkhead, Peyton Hillis scale, he probably falls closest to Rex Burkhead, yes. But Rex Burkhead was
Yeah. No, I don't hate it. Anyway, I think you got to pump the brakes on any Christian McCaffrey comp. So I'll tell you that right now.
Pump the brakes on that because as an actual running back, he looked like a wide receiver. Like when you throw a wide receiver at running back and then give him carries, that's what he looked like. He didn't have sort of the vision, the pacing of his runs that like comes with getting a lot of handoffs. So he's not really a true running back. I think he's more of a slot running back hybrid at the NFL level that. Honestly, you'd have to be creative to win with, or like you said, this could be good for his draft stock because he gets to show how he actually will look at wide receiver this next upcoming season.
All right, let's go to Trey Sermon, who has one of the best single-season forced missed tackle per attempt averages we've ever seen, and a lot of those high marks come from the Big 12. So there's definitely something there with Big 12 just not being able to tackle. But this guy's forced missed tackle ability is great, and I'm watching him at Oklahoma. This guy, I think, has a lot of what you're going to like at the running back position. Now going to Ohio State, like he could, from a production standpoint, put himself in the conversation to being one of the better running backs in this class. So
he's like sneaky big for running back. When you watch him run and move, he's just very smooth. There's just real smoothness to his game. But then you see he's listed at 6 foot 225, and you're like, holy shit! Like that guy, he doesn't move like 6 foot 225. He moves a lot lighter running back. It moves like he's probably like 6 foot 210. Like he just moves like your and he breaks tackles then because of that at a very high rate because guys bounce off his legs because he's very well built for the position. Limited experience in the passing game though, unfortunately. Only 36 catches his entire college career, and he's not necessarily has great explosiveness or athleticism. That's not going to be necessarily his game. I think he's probably like a 4.5-ish sort of guy, high 4.5s maybe. I mean, looking at his forced missed tackle stuff, I mean, he puts him, without that kind of high-end top speed, you put yourself in like the Zach Moss conversation of like forcing a ton of his tackles, not necessarily having the high-end athleticism to be like, an all-star in this class like Travis Etienne. And you look at what he did in 2017, 39 forced missed tackles on 120 attempts, 57 forced missed tackles in 2018 on just 162 attempts. Didn't play a ton this past year, but like that, those tackle breaking rates are super impressive. Yes, and so now he transfers to Ohio State. I believe he will be. I would think just from watching both of them that he's going to win the starting job there, or going to win the bulk of the carries. We'll get to his competition, Master Teague, here a little bit later, but I do think Trey Sermon is the much better of those two. Yep. All right, let's jump to Puka Williams. Before we jump into the off-field, there's obviously off-field tied with Puka Williams, but like on-field, this guy's pretty freaking awesome. Like he is #fun to watch. 74 broken tackles this past year, an 88.3 PFF rushing grade. Like this guy does a lot of it himself. A ton of yards after contact in each of the past 2 years. Like Puka Williams, like again on the field, like there is a ton of like 5'10", 170 pounds on the smaller side, but man can break some tackles. I like how you put it when you said he does a lot of it himself. And some of that is, yes, he plays at Kansas and their offensive line stinks, but a lot of it is like the way he runs looks like high school running back tape, where it's, yes, there's this designed run and it's supposed to go this way, but I see this hole over here, so I'm gonna go this way. Like I'm gonna completely change it. Like he just freelances every single play. So that's not what you want to see from running back. He is not a true running back. If you're going to plan on giving this guy more than 8 to 10 carries at the NFL level, I don't think that's ever going to happen. He's 5'10", 170. Like he isn't undersized. He's a pure scat back. But the bounciness that I said Max Borghi didn't have, Puka Williams has all of that. And as a receiver, he is awesome out of the backfield. Can get open, reminiscent of what else? J.J. Taylor, the Arizona back this past year, where it's just like if you got him one-on-one with a linebacker, it's over. He is not going to lose in that situation. You cannot pin this guy down even in a phone booth. Not at only 2 drops his entire college career, I believe. No, excuse me, 1 drop on 60 catchable his entire college career. Great hands, really natural receiver. Could even make a switch to slot receiver. That could be where he goes and ends up at the NFL level. But yes, like you said, # very fun to watch player. And he's fun to watch because, I mean, there's obviously some ability there, but like like you said, he puts himself in these situations where like it needs to be a ridiculous highlight or it's a big loss, or you're losing a ton of yards or like it just looks awful. And so to bring up the off-field stuff, he was suspended. This article, by the way, and this quote from Les Miles is insane. I'm going to read this to you. But he was suspended 1 game for a misdemeanor domestic battery charge in late last December. 1 game. And Les Miles says, no violence against women is okay. I did not make this decision, but I stand by it and see it as the right one. 1 game,
no violence against, like, that does not feel that heavy-handed. I don't know. Like, obviously, I could read the details. I'm like, anyway, that's what you have with Puka Williams as well. It was a one-game suspension, but like, there's also that aspect of
That
Puka
was
Williams, which was
2018. You said
2018. Yep,
okay.
December 2018. So I think it was a one-game suspension this past year is when the suspension, the violence against women is not okay. One-game suspension.
Jesus,
So
one game. Yeah.
Kind of absurd there. Hate to take the pod to a negative turn, but there is that. All right,
let's reset.
Demetric Felton, UCLA running back. You highlighted him last year as one of the sneaky good receiving running backs in the potentially in the 2020 class. And looking at his receiving production, there is a lot to like with Demetric Felton. And normally you're not going to UCLA for any talent of late, but Demetric Felton, there might be something here.
So we kind of touched on a couple guys who were like their slot receiving running back, Max Borghi. Obviously, Puka Williams we just hit, and now Demetric Felton. And Felton actually plays a good deal of slot in the UCLA offense as well. I think Felton, of all those guys, is the one I would feel comfortable being like, we can actually play him at running back. Like, this guy, he's 5'9", 185. I think he can get to a point where you can actually lean on him for, get to a size point and like the way he runs out of the backfield and his elusiveness.
Yeah,
you can actually lean on this guy. 21 broken tackles this past year on 87 carries. I think he is a much, much better player, just more talented than Josh Kelly was last year, the running back out of UCLA.
And he has not played a ton. Dude. Like, they have not given him a ton of opportunity at UCLA. Like, I think there's opportunity for him to see more of the football. He's played over 400 snaps of each of the past 2 years, but has not run the football a ton. Has been involved a little bit in the passing game, specifically in 2019. But I think there are more opportunities to see him run the football in 2020 and see him actually be this complete back that he could be. Yeah,
I'm excited for that. But as a receiver, he is lights out. The guy runs really smooth routes. Like, that's why they played him in the slot a good deal, is because he's just very talented in that regard. 54 catches this past year, 18 broken tackles on those catches. That's a pretty darn good rate.
That is fantastic. All right, Kylan Hill, the Mississippi State running back. I've said this guy you said it before too, but there are games where the guy looks like a bowling ball, a butcher knives, and is untackleable against even good competition. But then there's also games where you don't see that. There's some inconsistency there. Like, he has these kind of high-end games. I'm most interested to see how he develops as a wide receiver with Mike Leach, because that's the most important thing. Because right now, and we talk about forced missed tackles a lot, and because it's so predictive and so stable going from the college to the pros. But you have to do more than forced missed tackles if you're gonna, actively fight this replaceability. Like, you have to also catch out of the backfield. You have to maybe even have some positional versatility and run things from the slot. Like, Kylan Hill, I think, has a huge opportunity. It's a big reason probably why he came back to work with Mike Leach in this offense and develop as a receiver.
Yeah, really not featured there. 18 catches this past season for 180 yards. He has 6 drops on 50 catchable in his career. It's not been good in that regard, but he's going to get every opportunity this upcoming year. Like I said, that Mike Leach offense throws to the running backs a ton. Now, it's a lot of checkdowns, not necessarily a lot of downfield routes to the running back position, but even that is helpful in terms of the evaluating and projecting to the next level. With me, though, this guy has good burst for his size. He has the weights, weight size combo down pat, 5'11", 215, looks like an NFL running back. His vision, though, is not good. It's just bad. He has a play in the Auburn game where early in the Auburn game, first quarter, where I think it's just an inside zone handoff up the middle, but they bring a slot blitz to the front side, and as soon as he gets the handoff, he freezes staring at the slot blitz guy who's still 6 yards away from him. Still, if he just cut up field, that guy would not be involved in the play, but he's staring away from where he wants to go, literally lateral to the line of scrimmage, stares at that guy, freezes, tries to shake that guy instead of just following where the run's designed to go and cutting out field, and that guy never would have even touched him. You see plays like that in this tape too much where he stops his feet in the backfield because the vision and the one cut, sort of the things that I like to see translate as a runner to the NFL, he does not do well and has not done well at Mississippi State. And the kind of concerning thing is you go into this Mike Leach offense, you're not really going to change that because it's just there's just so much space. You run against 5-man boxes.
Yeah.
I don't think if that's still an issue next. I guess if that's still an issue next year, like then we can talk. But it's when things get crowded and things get hairy and it's not quite as clean. That's when Colin Hill I worry about him being able to be productive.
And I think that's one of the harder things for a lot of running backs when they're translating from college to pros is working the vision and choosing the right hole and that kind of stuff because of like you're seeing lighter boxes at the college level or things are cleaner. You can break tackles easier and like you're more often rewarded if you are this freakish athlete that's drafted in the first 3 or 4 rounds at the running back position. You're more often rewarded for bad decisions because you can break a shitload of tackles. Like you're like, oh man, I can bounce this front side on inside zone. Like I can do that no problem. Puka Williams,
Yeah.
I can do whatever I want. You can obviously see that in his fucking game. But like you see these running backs that can do whatever they want at the collegiate level. Coaching that out of them at the NFL level, I think it's got to happen if you are going to actually have consistent production and avoid like significant loss because you can't be taking significant losses at that position either when it's already so hard to provide value as a runner.
Yeah, the Rashawn Gary effect. I think we need to coin that. The Rashawn Gary effect. When you're such a freak athlete that you don't have to develop any sort of technique to just dominate.
Yes.
That happens at the running back like tenfold. That's so common at the running back where it's just like this guy is just the Reggie Bush was the OG of it, where it's just like he didn't feel the need to follow the tenets of the run game. Yeah. He just was gonna do what he wanted to do because it worked for him every single level.
It has to be so difficult to be fundamental, like know the fundamentals of any position or anything you're doing if you're just naturally a god at it. I mean, especially if you're dating back to high school, like a lot of these running backs playing quarterback in high school and like just could do whatever they want because they were just the best athletes on the football field. All right, let's go ahead and jump to CJ Verdell, the Oregon running back, who I had a double take on this size. 5'9", 210. This guy's a hoss, man. This guy's got. I mean, only just over 200 attempts over the past 2 years and over 1,000 yards each time. Forced missed tackles, not great. Like I don't love the rate that you do see from CJ Verdell, but like still, dude, this guy's got some beef on that 5'9" frame.
He's one of the most interesting. His tape is some of the most interesting in this entire draft class. Like very productive. He's at 1,000 yards the past 2 years, but he gets the handoff. And he is at full speed, like within a split second. The guy hits the line of scrimmage as hard as any running back in this draft class. And it's to a fault. Like his bad broken tackle rate is because he does not like stop to shake guys. He does not change his mind. He goes. There's a play against Auburn, first week of the season, midway through the fourth quarter, where Derek Brown sheds off a block and CJ Verdell is coming at him 100 miles an hour, sticks his helmet right into Derek Brown's chest and runs through him. Derek Brown does not break. Like one of Derek Brown's like few missed tackles in his entire college career came because CJ Verdell was already probably, running 20 plus miles an hour into his chest. And the guy has legit speed. He's an explosive dude, but man, he needs a little, like, I rarely say to like try to like calm guys. He needs to run a little calmer. Like, take maybe a Xanax before his next game. Yeah, maybe some CBD pills. Like this guy, he just is 100 miles an hour every single time he touches the ball. And in terms of natural talent, like
I'm trying to think of a running back who has a similar style. Like
Leonard Fournette kind of ran like that coming out of LSU, where it was just like he had to get up to full speed, but that was a little different reason why. Like he just it took him a while to get up to full speed because of how big he was. Verdell's compact dude, like I said, 5'9", 210. He doesn't need that. He can get up to speed quickly from a stop or a slow crawl. So it's just something that I would like to see improved upon this upcoming season. But that's why his yards after contact over 4 this past year, 6.2 yards per carry.
He's searching for it. I mean, he's taking it so early. I feel like when you're just putting your head down and running, if you're ever making the decision to put your helmet down through Derek Brown, you're gonna have a lot of yards after contact because you're just like willing and able to seek contact out early in the run. All right, last running back we want to highlight here is Zamir White. I think former 5-star recruit, goes to Georgia, does not have a ton of experience. Only 78 carries this past year for 408 yards, 19 broken tackles, and a 3.6 yards after contact per attempt average. But former 5-star, you see some of that athleticism in his game. Where are you with Zamir White? Is it just kind of like, what does this guy bring to the table?
So I don't think he's near what we've seen from Georgia running backs in the past. He's not DeAndre Swift.
Oh, wow.
He's obviously not Nick Chubb. I don't even think he's.
Todd Gurley.
Oh no, I wasn't gonna say Todd. Sony Michel. I don't even think he's quite that. Now he's also only gonna be a redshirt sophomore, and obviously guys can develop over the course of their careers. But I just didn't see the creativity, the make you miss, that sort of like innate shake that some running backs have. He's kind of just like big, fast, but not necessarily dynamic. Like he's going to who's Nile Davis, the former Arkansas running back who ran like 4.3 something at 220, and everyone's like, "Damn, why isn't this guy like considered a top pick?" It was just because he's not dynamic. Even though he's big and fast, he doesn't have this sort of dynamism. And it's just like hard to really put your finger on it. That's kind of how I feel about Zamir White. And you could still win at the NFL level being big and fast. Like Nile Davis had some good games, but I just don't see near the prospect of those other Georgia backs.
And I think it's also indicative, Nick Chubb, I think, is a true freshman, was getting a good amount of carries because they knew this guy was something, and I think it's indicative that, Zamir White wasn't heavily involved. Only 2 games where he had more than 10 carries in a single game. And I think obviously Georgia knows how to scout backs. And I think you look at, not scout, but recruit backs, I guess would be a better way of putting that. But like looking at them specifically in practice, like, if he only 100 total snaps, you know what I mean? Like that's another thing where, I don't know. I think there's definitely concerns there. All right. That's the running back position. Looking back on it and what you kind of said earlier, or you added a couple names, actually. I apologize. I don't know why I was stopping at Zamir White. We need to get to these last 3 guys.
We got 3 more. Sorry.
All right. Master Teague, Ohio State, take the reins.
Yes. This guy on the spectrum of
He's a
Ohio
bigger
State
dude.
backs.
This guy's got some size.
I was gonna say I love making these same school comps, even though I always like repel against them when it actually comes draft time. But on the spectrum of Beanie Wells and Carlos Hyde on one side versus J.K. Dobbins and Ezekiel Elliott on the other side, he swings way towards the Beanie Wells side, like all the way past Beanie Wells towards just like the man's not he doesn't he but he the thing is he knows it. He's not dynamic. He is a straight line guy. He is not going to make you miss. He is a one cut, get upfield, lower his pads, get what he gets. Almost runs like fullbacks
Cedric
run
Benson
when they get handoffs. Yeah, like when a fullback gets a handoff, you're like, this guy's not going to. They know they're fullbacks. They're not going to like.
That's the messed up part about the running back position is that, like, say you're not like a super athlete and you have to learn the fundamentals of the position. You have to be technically sound. You're still not going to be good. Like you could be a very good technician at other. Yeah. You can be a very good technician at other positions with less than desirable measurables and be very good, like very, very productive on the interior offensive line, other places as well. But like running back, it's like if you don't have that like top tier athleticism, top tier dynamism, I don't care how well you're reading an inside zone, you're going to struggle in the NFL to be like a very good running back. Like that's just fact.
Yeah, so he's 5'11", 225. I will give it to his credit. Like I said, he knows it. He knows he's not dynamic, and he gets upfield, lowers his shoulder, drops his pad level, will lower the boom, averaged 3.75 yards after contact this past season, but he's just not the kind of running back I'd covet when projecting to the NFL.
I mean, there's a reason Trey Sermon's coming over from Oklahoma. Okay, they didn't tell Trey Sermon.
Good.
They didn't tell Trey Sermon that like it's going to be an even competition between you and Master Teague. They're like, no, this guy sucks, or not. Maybe not this guy sucks, but like, hey, it's like your position to lose at the very least. Because when you are making those transfer decisions, it's more than just the school and those things. It's like opportunity. Like Trey Sermon's
that's why he's leaving Oklahoma, is because the guy we're talking about next year.
Yeah. Kennedy Brooks, over 100 carries in each of the past 2 years, over 1,000 yards. Dude had 1,053 yards in 2018 on 119 carries. Over 5 yards after contact per attempt, 37 forced missed tackles. This guy, the elusiveness, the rate metrics, all that stuff really, really stand out. And again, like you said, it's a reason Trey Sermon's now playing in Columbus.
Yes. So Kennedy Brooks, very good balance. The missed tackle rate's very indicative of that. 50 broken tackles on 155 carries this past year, 37 broken tackles on 119 the year prior. The juice, explosive, the speed is not there with Kennedy Brooks, unfortunately. Very good balance. He can take hits to his lower half and still stay up, but watching his tape reminded me of LaMichael Pirine last year at Florida. It was just like, I'm not getting excited about any of this. Like, there's not a lot that I'm that's really getting me hot and bothered here. Like there's just not a lot to love, and that's so on the like I was talking about Chuba Hubbard. There's just like nothing really stood out as a dominant trait, but he was like good across the board. Nothing stands out as a dominant trait for Kennedy Brooks, but he's just like average across the board is how I'd say it. So he's probably like a few rounds lower on my eyes, probably like a
it's got to be Chuba, right? It can't be Chuba Hubbard. That sounds
I like
ridiculous.
saying it with the rhyming aspect, so I'm gonna stick with
that. Sounds ridiculous. All right, I got to be honest. This last guy I have not watched at all. You added this guy late, Jatavius Whitlow, the Auburn running back, 6 foot 210. Looking at the production he's had, over 150 carries of each of the past 2 years. Not super impressive rate metrics from a yards per carry standpoint or yards after contact standpoint. You're adding him to the list for a reason, though.
I'm adding him to the list for a reason because he was at Auburn last year, was basically the starter at the beginning of the season, fumbled 3 times against Tulane, had 6 fumbles on the season, got basically benched, now transferring in the transfer portal. No clue where he's going to go, but this dude's talented. He is a big, explosive guy. Watching him was very reminiscent of Le'Veon Bell, the way he runs. Very patient. Wow. It's actually funny. Watching the Oregon-Auburn game, you see C.J. Verdell taking handoffs versus the way Jatavius Whitlow took handoffs, and I was like, this is like the complete opposite spectrum. Yes. So 46 broken tackles last year on 155 attempts. Like he is elusive, big, and fast. But the fumbles are a massive issue, and no clue where he's going to end up after. Like, obviously, entering the transfer portal might end up pulling Kenny Robinson and just saying screw it at this point. There's no XFL
to fall back on. Though.
Yeah, I know. So we'll see what happens with him. But yeah, man, Whitlow was an interesting prospect prior to obviously the fumbles and then the subsequent transferring. So we'll see what ends up happening with him. But a name
3
to watch.
Fumbles. Dude had 20 carries against Oregon, over 20 carries against Tulane, but that's the 3 fumble game. Just slowly and steadily, just drop it off. Like, dude, we're not. That sucks. It's the that running back from Remember the Titans, really, the guy who just fumble all the time. Or was that? Am I thinking of the wrong movie there? I might be. Oh no, it's not Remember the Titans. Friday Night Lights. I apologize. The guy where the guy has his dad duct tapes the football around his arms.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. I apologize for mixing those 2 movies. Regardless, that's the running back class. I mean, looking at what you said, like the guys we had talked about early in this class, like Max Borghi, Puka Williams, Demetric Felton. I mean, so Max Borghi and Puka Williams, 2 guys that like they're probably better suited playing in the slot at the next level. Like that already takes away from the depth of the position. Najee Harris is very like that 4-minute offense type of back. Chuba Hubbard is like, there isn't the names that intrigue me. I think Demetric Felton, C.J. Verdell. I kind of need to just see this guy more, knowing that like this guy's running through Derek Brown. And then, I mean, I don't know. After those 2 guys, it's like there are obvious weaknesses in these in the games where you don't want to be drafting some of these running backs after Travis Etienne in the 2nd round. Like we saw this run on running backs in 2020. Like I can't get on board with some of these guys as 2nd round picks.
Yeah, there's just no real young, productive, up and coming backs. Kind of like there was last year when you had DeAndre Swift, J.K. Dobbins, that people just like knew about that were like, oh, they're going to be juniors. They're going to, they've been productive already. The guys who are at the top of this class are guys who were seniors and who made the decision to come back, a lot of them or some of them, because, guys like Najee Harris, because they got their draft stock came back to them and they didn't like where it was. And they were trying to get it higher than that. With another year of college. So
it's not a great running back class when a lot of the top guys are seniors.
Exactly.
That I would agree with that. I mean, Travis Etienne I think is an exception to that rule, but like still I think that's a good way of looking at this class. All right, that's going to do it for the 2-for-1 drafts on Renner and I's front. However, we are now going to kick to the Tiki Barber interview before we break. Mike, really appreciate the breakdown of the running backs. I want to watch more of this Whitlow guy, Verdell. Zamir White, I think, is interesting just because of the background, but I think it's going to be an interesting running back group where you're going to have to. I don't know. There's going to be a guy that everyone falls in love with. I think there are play styles that people will fall in love with Puka Williams, Max Borghi, but still an interesting group to study over the next year plus. So very much looking forward to that, Mike. Really appreciate it. Let's kick to Tiki. Joining the 2-for-1 Drafts podcast is former NFL running back and honestly someone who's done a lot of great things in the media space as well as Tiki Barber. Tiki, it's great to have you on.
Thanks for having me on, guys. How you doing?
Doing great,
Yep.
man. I don't know how familiar you are with PFF, but I'm super familiar of your career and watching you in the NFL, and it was great to see. The reason I wanted to bring you on, we're doing this series right now, looking at the running back position, looking a little bit ahead to the 2021 running back class, getting a preview before the college football season starts. But before we even bring up specific player names and those things, I'd love to get your take, playing in the NFL and seeing where the NFL is going at the running back position, what you think is valuable at the running back position when you're evaluating traits and skill set.
I got to tell you, it's a great question because it's evolved and it's been ever evolving, to be honest with you. So if you think back, I don't know if you guys might not be old enough to remember, but in 1997, when I got drafted in the second round, the 36th pick overall, I was 203 or 4 pounds, 5'9" and a half, 5'10". My ceiling in a lot of people's mind was kick returner, third down back. I mean, I remember them saying you're going to be the next Dave Meggett, right? A better Dave Meggett. That's what everybody thought I was going to be. But then something interesting started to occur around the league in the form of Marshall Faulk. So Marshall did everything. Like he was smart. He could catch the ball out of the backfield. He had one of those thousand yard seasons, which we just recently saw from Christian McCaffrey. And it became a unique way to use an athletic, somewhat smaller running back. Used to be 6'2", 230. Right, go pound the ball 3 yards in a cloud of dust. But something started to shift. And you saw these smart coordinators like Sean Payton, who happened to be our coordinator in New York, who said, let's evolve the position. Let's use it differently. And so around 2000, we started doing a lot of misdirection. You know what I mean? It was let's line everybody up, bunch right, and then we're going to toss it out the backside. Or we're going to do these scissors plays where you start one way, get all movement going to your left, and we're going to come back with the fullback leading back to the right side. And it took advantage of a smaller player's athleticism. In addition to that, you started to have to catch the ball in the backfield. So I was catching 50, 60 passes a season. And very slowly, you saw it start to change. Like Thomas Jones was doing this. LaDainian Tomlinson was doing this. And then eventually, you fast forward to 2015 or so, 2016, that becomes like critical. If you don't have a running back who can catch the football, who can run to the edges and zones, or but also catch the ball out of the backfield and be tough up the middle, you're not valuable at the position. And so it's evolved from what it used to be to what it is now. And when you look at it now and you see the Christian McCaffreys of the world or the Dalvin Cooks of the world, it's this versatility that reigns. Very few of them are going to get 350 carries a game. But, Chris McCaffrey's already got 2,000 yards receiving and 2,000 yards rushing in 3 seasons, which is crazy to think about.
Absolutely. And with all of that being said, I want to put you on the spot a little bit. I'm not going to ask for one name, but talk to me about who you think are the best running backs in the NFL right now. Because I think a lot of people would say Christian McCaffrey or, maybe even throw Ezekiel Elliott into the mix, knowing what he can do on the ground. But I think I'd be interested to hear, knowing how this position has evolved, who you think some of the best running backs in the NFL are.
Well, you might be surprised from what the description I just gave you. I love Christian McCaffrey because he does everything. And he can be on the field every single play. I mean, in fact, were there 6 games last year? He played 100% of the snaps. So you don't have to take him off the field, and he's proven to be durable. Obviously, I'm going to be a homer because I love Saquon Barkley. He's a great kid, and I think he's a great leader for that New York Giants team. So those are 2. I think Dalvin Cook, if he stays healthy, is another who I just mentioned. But to be honest with you, if I was picking a running back, aside from Christian McCaffrey, I would take Derrick Henry. And the reason is he's big, he's durable, obviously, but more importantly, situationally, he's amazing. If you need to throw him a screen, he'll catch a screen. He's not a prolific wide receiver. You're not lining him up as a wide out like you can Christian McCaffrey. But if you need to throw a screen, he'll catch it and go 30 yards, or he'll go 70 yards. More importantly, when you get into the 4-minute offense, and we all know what the 4-minute offense is if you follow football, you have a lead, there's less than 4 minutes left in the game, you just got to pound it, right? Hold on to the football, go get 4 yards, move the change, get first down after first down after first down. I've seen Derrick Henry at least 3 times. It's probably more. In a 4-minute offense, there's 8, 9 guys at the line of scrimmage. Go to the house. You know what I mean? like 60 yards, 70 yards to the house, walk off, game over. put the dagger in your chest, right? That's the kind of runner that I love, and we saw that last year in the postseason. Derrick Henry became the man in so many different ways. So he doesn't fit this mold that I reference when I say just you need this guy to be the elite running back in the NFL. Derrick Henry is not that, but he's a guy that I would absolutely take on my team.
Bringing up Derrick Henry actually is a good transition to what I wanted to talk about next, which was paying running backs. The sort of the conversation around that second contract. They just franchised him out there in Tennessee, but you famously didn't even really get going in your career, didn't even get featured until your second contract. You didn't have, your best season came at age 30 statistically. So what are your thoughts on the sort of growing trend of not wanting to give that big money on that second contract?
I get it because the players are interchangeable. I mean, you can go find a Chris Carson in 2017. That's, by the way, the year of the running back that season. And he drafted in the 7th round, right? And he's, 5th or 6th best running back out of that, at least by yards out of that class. And so you can find guys. Aaron Jones, he was a 5th round draft pick for the Green Bay Packers. You can find them later in the draft. And so the value at the beginning of their careers is somewhat diminished. And then once you put some wear and tear on them, 300 carries a year for 3 or 4 years, it's like, they starting to diminish. I mean, they've taken too many hits. What's he really worth? And if we pay him, is it going to be, 3 years he breaks down, or is it going to be 6 years he breaks down, or is it going to be next year that he breaks down, a la Todd Gurley? And so it's really, really dicey unless you have a situation like the Carolina Panthers have, where they stole a year. They stole the 5th-year option year, and they paid Christian McCaffrey because, one, he's dynamic as hell, as we talked about, but also he's the face, right? Right? Who's the face of that offense right now? Yeah. Cam Newton's gone. They bring in Teddy Bridgewater, and we all love Teddy Bridgewater, but is Teddy Bridgewater going to, be an all-pro quarterback? Who knows? Christian McCaffrey is the face. It's usually the quarterback, but in Carolina, it's Christian McCaffrey. So unless you have a situation like that, and it's similar to that in Dallas with Ezekiel Elliott, he's essentially the face of the franchise, even though Dak is starting to become that. If it's not, if you don't have those two things, one, he's got to be really good, but two, he's got to be the face of the franchise in a sense, the marketing arm of the franchise. It's really hard to pay them a ton of money. I think we're only going to see a few of them happen now. Saquon Barkley will probably get paid this way because he'll be the face of the franchise. Others, kids showing behind me, but there may be a few others. But for the most part, I think it's going to be hard to see running backs get these big numbers that they deserve.
No, I would agree with you. I think you bring up a great point there, in that you have to be the face of the franchise if you're going to get that second contract. And that plays a huge factor. I was talking to some people on the Carolina Panthers social media team talking about, Christian McCaffrey is a big part of what we need to do, a big part of, the marketing arm that we do have. And I think Dallas Cowboys found themselves in that situation as well with Ezekiel Elliott. It's more than just what you do on the football field. It's more than the value you provide between the whistles. It's really, the marketing arm. I think that's a great point you bring up. I want to jump a little bit to this rookie class and talk specifically about some of the names you really like. There was a run on running backs at the back end of the first, starting with Clyde Edwards-Helaire to the Kansas City Chiefs. And then second round, and I know, Mike, you'd speak to this too, there was a ton of running backs coming off the board. Jonathan Taylor and some of these, Keyshawn Vaughn, some of these other guys. Give me some names that you really like for the situation they're in and where they're coming out of.
I like DeAndre Swift. He's a smaller back, so I don't think he's going to get 200 or 300 carries, but I think he's versatile and valuable, and he's tough. I'm a little bit worried about Jonathan Taylor in Indianapolis. I know he's going to split carries with Marlon Mack, and so we know he can be a home run hitter, but that zone scheme that they run in Wisconsin, where it's one cut, you got 330 pounders in front of you. It works in college. I'm not so sure that it works, except for the Denver Broncos of old, in the National Football League as effectively as it has been. I really like the kid from Florida State. His name is slipping me right now. Cam Akers, yes. Cam Akers, who went to the Rams. He's one of those players that reminds me of Christian McCaffrey in a way because he's so versatile. So there's a handful that are going to be, I think, impactful. But I don't know if we have a class like we had in 2017, because I'll keep mentioning it, that had just player after player after player after player, all of whom have done great things for the teams that they are on. Even Kareem Hunt, who's been on 2 teams from that season.
When you're looking at college backs, are you sometimes like partial to guys who look like you coming out?
A little bit.
You mentioned DeAndre Swift first. He has almost a very similar body type to you when you played. Are you just like, oh yeah, that's the kind of back I want?
Yeah, it's funny because you look at those players and I hear it before the analyst even says something. It's like, oh, he's a little bit small. I don't know if he could be an every down back in the NFL. And I'm like, dude, he's 5'10", 206 pounds. I played 10 years and rushed for 10,000 yards. What do you mean he's not durable enough? It's like it's become this cliche or this this tag that you throw on a kid that's not over 6 feet tall, and it's unfair because it really has nothing to do with that. It's more about one, toughness, 2, intelligence, and this I'll go back to the Marshall Faulk. He was one of the highest football IQs that you ever saw in the National Football League. So it's intelligence on how to be a reliable pass catcher and a blitz picker-upper, but also like a second general standing there next to or behind the quarterback. And it gets discounted, but it's so important to success in the National Football League. Not to mention, you learn, like if you don't learn how to not take hits, then you're not going to last long in the National Football League. I remember having that conversation with Brandon Jacobs in 2006 when I knew I was going to retire. And BJ is, we all remember BJ, big, strong.
Talk about a guy who can take hits. I mean,
dude, he was like a tight end or a defensive end playing running back, and he used to always just like to truck people. And I'm like, BJ, look, I love you, bro, but you are not going to play long if you do that. I don't care if you're bigger than the guys. You're not going to play long. And he adjusted his game and ended up winning a couple Super Bowls and having a pretty decent career, except for that little stint out in San Francisco. And so, it is about the physical skill sets, but there's a piece of intelligence that matters. And this is why Christian McCaffrey, and I'll keep coming back to him, is such a valuable piece for the Carolina Panthers. He is, first of all, he's good looking. He's got a great body. He's durable. He catches the ball. He runs the ball, and he's smart as all get out. And that's why you pay him as much money as the Carolina Panthers paid him.
All right, one last question, then we'll let you go here. I wanted to touch on, not in the 2020 class, but I think he would have been the first running back off the board if he did declare. Travis Etienne, Clemson running back. You probably haven't dug too deep into him, but it's hard to ignore what he's done on the football field. What do you think of a guy making that decision in this day and age? You obviously played till your senior year at Virginia, but he comes back for his senior year at Clemson. What would you advise a guy in that similar situation?
Man, I probably would have advised him to go. And Chuba Hubbard from Oklahoma State is another. I saw him play personally the Oklahoma State game, and it's hard. I had a guy that I played with, Anthony Poindexter, who was a safety at University of Virginia. He was a great player, one of the few first team All-Americans that Virginia's ever had. And he decided to stay for I think it was his junior season. He redshirted, so he could have come out after his sophomore year, redshirt sophomore year. He decided to stay, and then in a game against NC State, he's standing around a pile. Someone falls over the pile. He tears his ACL. I mean, really tears his ACL. Not like just, oh, you got a little tear there. We'll fix it and you'll be fine. Like, tore everything. And it ruined his opportunity to ever be a pro. And he would have been a great one, too. In fact, he even got drafted after all of that by the Baltimore Ravens. And so I probably would have advised those guys to come out. The challenge is they're getting advice from so many different angles, and some people will look at the competition and say, yeah, but your running back is being devalued. You got to find a season or a year to come out when there's not a ton of players there so that you can potentially sneak into that first round and get that extra guaranteed money. But the risk of injury is so high that it's really hard to advise kids who have proven that they can play at a high level against great competition to stay in school. Etienne is definitely that player. I mean, he in big time games shows up big time, seriously, every year. Hubbard's the same way. I think Najee Harris at Alabama is also in that conversation. But those are the ones that have popped off, and it's because I've seen all them play in person. Those are the ones that pop off the top of my head from this 2021 class into next year.
I cannot wait for Travis Etienne in 2020. I mean, he is just such a fun player to watch, very explosive. And in that Clemson offense, when there's that threat of Trevor Lawrence beating you over the top, I mean, he goes against light boxes at a high rate as well. Tiki, I really appreciate the time. This was fantastic. We'll have to get you back on the podcast closer to the season or in season if you do have time. I think your takes are great. I really appreciate the Christian McCaffrey love and the love of the evolving position. But thanks again, Tiki. Until next time.
Anytime, guys. Take care.
You too.